Joe, it is week 10, and it is Wednesday, so our power rankings are here, presented by our good friends over at FanDuel. But your top 12 consists of whom?
I have in my top 12, number 1, Ohio State, number 2, Indiana, number 3, Alabama, 4, Texas A&M, 5, Oregon, 6, Georgia, 7, Ole Miss, 8, Texas Tech, 9, Miami, 10, Notre Dame, 11, Georgia Tech, 12, Vandy.
So my top 12 here in order. Ohio State at number 1, Alabama at number 2, Texas A&M at number 3, Indiana at number 4, Georgia number 5, Ole Miss at number 6, Miami at number 7, Oregon at number 8, Notre Dame at number 9, Vandy at 10, Texas Tech at 11, and Louisville in the top 12. I know where you're going, so go right on ahead and try to stop me.
Okay, dude, we have to start with the fact that you've launched Texas A&M as high as you have them and just tried to pull this one off, Blake.
What do you mean as high as I have them?
You have them. Where did you have them? You have them at number 3?
Yeah, and you have them at 4.
I'm referring to the fact that you dropped Indiana in favor of Texas A&M. Blake, look, I get it. Texas A&M, good football program. And I'm going to probably end up digging a little deeper when we have this debate. They do a lot of things well. Very explosive on offense. I love their run game. Reuben Owens has been awesome to watch him live up to his potential. Marcel Reed's playing at a high level. I'm one of the biggest Cassius Howell fans that you're going to find. I put him in a mock draft today. I had him going in the top 20, even though he's a little bit undersized in terms of length. He's a great player. I love a lot of things about this team. Blake, I got a lot of problem with you continuously being low on Indiana. I don't want to have the same debate that we had last week, where all we did was talk about the strength of schedule from the Big Ten in the SEC. All I am pointing out is that I don't understand how a game against LSU is enough to dictate your decision-making in having them higher than Indiana.
So an undefeated team that just keeps blowing everybody out is the reason that I'm
not blowing everybody out.
Okay, well, I've seen Georgia, who you have in your top 5, struggle with Auburn. I've seen Texas A&M struggle with Auburn. I've seen a lot of teams also struggle with Auburn, and that's the only game that they've had that. The guy behind me also struggled with Auburn. For people listening on podcasts, it's Joe Burrow. There are going to be games. I saw Indiana struggle with Iowa. So when I sit here and say, okay, I keep seeing them produce at a high level and getting better every week. They're getting better every week, and they have guys that aren't even playing that will be back in a couple of weeks, and they keep producing at a high level. I got to be real with you. Here's my justification, and you don't want to have the same argument. I'm taking the receiving core that they have in Craver, in Bussey, in Concepcion, along with Marcel Reed, that offensive line and run game, that I'm taking with Indiana. Now, you can say, well, Blake, why would you do that? Joe, I think they're more explosive at wide receiver. I think they're more physical in their run game. I would not take Marcel Reed over Fernando Mendoza as it sits right now. But I just keep seeing an athletic quarterback make ridiculously great throws and ridiculously great runs. When I look at them on defense, now that Mike Elko has taken over, Joe, they're in the top 2, and they're not number 2 in third down defense. I look at their run defense, or maybe they are second, whatever it is. I look at them from an individual standpoint in their front 7. Since he's taken over, the sack production has gone up. Their secondary has been much better in what they've been doing through the first couple of weeks when you saw them at Notre Dame. I see a team that's won in multiple ways, and if you're asking me, oh, well, Blake hates the Big Ten, Blake's low on Indiana, well, I have them at 4, I'm taking what I think I see in a better wide receiver room, offensive line, and run game offensively. Joe, I got to be real with you. I don't know if this isn't the best offense in college football right now. So when I look at them, who is?
I think Ohio State's is better. I think that
they're 115th in the country in explosive plays. So if we're going to go there, the number 1 team in explosive plays, I'm going to go where yes, they are. They
might be there in that metric, but Blake, if we're just talking about the overall, the roster construction of that offense is better than the Texas A&M offense.
No, it's not. That offensive line, for what it's worth, they're 71st in the country in rushing. They have a better
They've
defense.
allowed 3 sacks on the year.
Sounds good. They can't run the ball.
Yeah, that does sound good. That sounds great.
It does sound good. But at the same time, they're not hitting explosive plays. They're not trying to push the ball down the field enough. And I got to be real with you, Joe. They can't. They're 71st in rushing. Here's the thing that I would point out. Every time we come in here, Alabama can't run the ball. This team can't run the ball in the SEC. That team can't run the ball in the SEC. But when we point it out for Ohio State, it's just not that big of a deal. Joe, they're 71st. And quite frankly, here's a newsflash for everybody. They have only played a ranked opponent. Hold on. How many teams that could challenge their run game and stop that run game have they played?
But the difference between Ohio State's quote lack, we've talked about this, they have a lack of run game success. To me, it has a lot less to do with them being completely stood up and stopped. They don't have really a large number of games where it felt like they were completely manhandled at the line of scrimmage. Instead, it just feels like that there's been an overcommitment to throwing the football, and they've chosen to do that more often. I think it has a lot more to do with an identity issue rather than an actual talent issue. I think it has a lot more to do with the fact that they know that they can get a bucket every time that they go to Carnell Tate or to Jeremiah Smith, that if the run game is moving a little slower than expected, that Brian Hartline's going to bail on that. I think it just has more to do with the fact that they need to lean on their run game more, which is why we've talked about it. Bo Jackson has the potential to be a productive running back. He's a true freshman, so maybe they don't feel the need to lean on him more. But here's where I have an issue with what you're talking about here with Texas A&M. I have 2 performances where they struggled this year with Arkansas and with Auburn. The best defense that they have played all year long is Auburn's defense. And I'm being perfectly clear here. This has nothing to do with strength of schedule. I'm merely pointing out that the one time that they wait.
You're taking my argument.
No, I'm not taking your argument. The point that I'm trying to make here is that I'm talking specific matchups. This is what I did last week, and you kept arguing with me that I was trying to bring up strength of schedule. I'm simply talking about the best defense, not the best team. The best defense that Texas A&M has seen was Auburn, and they scored 16 points.
So what's going to happen if A&M at the end of the season against that Texas defense puts up more than 17 points in a quarter?
That's a big fat if. That's an if. What? Can we stop with the hypotheticals?
Okay.
It's a projection.
Here's the problem with what you just said. You just said last week when I brought this up about who teams have played, you said
no, but that's not what I'm doing. No, because you're misquoting me.
You literally word for word just said the toughest defense A&M has played is Auburn. Correct?
But can you let me clarify? You're misquoting me.
How am I misquoting your exact words?
Those aren't my exact words. The difference between me saying that the best team that you've played and comparing resumes and me pointing out a performance and acknowledging how you played against the best defense on your schedule is not the same thing.
Okay,
me providing context to the one time you were challenged. Okay, how did you perform?
Okay, well, you only put up 17 points against a team that might be a 5-loss team from the SEC, and that's Texas. So if you're going to do that, I can make the argument that Texas might be the toughest team that Ohio State has played.
I thought we were talking about Indiana. That was also I guess we're talking about both of them.
Here's another question. The toughest team that Indiana has played, which all this has to play out, is an Oregon team that went double overtime. If we're talking about resumes, just resumes, because we'll get into this Oregon debate. I don't know if Oregon right now, they're going to have to show that the Indiana thing wasn't fake. Hold on. You're talking about resumes. You're going to let me talk.
I am not talking about resumes because the problem is what now you're doing is you're going through Indiana's schedule and then you're trying to explain how good Oregon is by explaining who Oregon has played. And then we go down this rabbit hole of looking at who Oregon has played.
With all due respect,
it's not what I did.
The only way that you do a power ranking is seeing a team on the opposing team that they're playing. The only way
identifying strengths and weaknesses, and the way that I'm doing that is by pointing out that they played.
Me what I would do, I would take Concepcion and Craver with the explosiveness, along with the play calling, along with the offensive line, along with the run game, that they have been more explosive. I would trust that more.
Okay, and
hold on.
To finish, wait. I didn't even get to finish what my point was earlier.
I have them at 4.
Okay, that's fine. Actually, that's way too low. That's actually way too low to have Indiana. You shouldn't have them at 4.
Okay,
They have been
because
incredibly dominant.
Incredibly dominant. Interesting. You bring up the Auburn game, and then I look at Indiana versus Iowa.
Iowa's defense.
So hold. You bring up the A&M Auburn situation when Indiana's struggling against Iowa, and I know that Auburn defense is a lot better than Iowa. Statistically,
I think that the Iowa defense and the Auburn defense are relatively comparable. This Iowa team
they're not.
Yes, they are. This is the whole general problem when we talk about ranked wins versus whatnot and who you face, is that it doesn't equate or account for when teams play teams that are in the middle of the pack of the country, teams that are hovering around the 40s and the 50s. Indiana has played quality teams. They had a slightly disappointing performance against Iowa, but they still were able to control that game and were able to win it. The point that I was trying to finish with earlier, Blake, was the problem that I had with Texas A&M in previous weeks. Their run defense is still a problem. They're the one team on this list, and not having a good run defense is something that has killed teams in the past. We talked about this critically with Miami last year.
And then you don't bring up Ohio State. You're only doing that to SEC teams.
What is Ohio State's issue with their run defense? Run defense.
You did say run offense. That's why I brought it up.
I could have sworn I said defense.
Okay.
Like, I think that the number one thing that you can't get away with in this sport is not having a good run defense. That is the number one thing that I think catches up to him.
I don't disagree with that. But I think that I am getting more explosiveness and a better overall talent base with a really good coordinator when I look at A&M. That's the bottom line. And I think that I've seen a team that constantly, no matter what the challenge is, they keep overcoming. I mean, I'm just being real. And here's the thing about Iowa. Can Iowa literally or even come close to putting up the situations that Auburn can on the outside with Singleton and Cam Coleman? It's a different beast offensively, and you know that.
I don't like the phrasing of that, though, saying it's a different beast. I think that
Cam Coleman would be Superman the day that he stood foot in the state of Iowa. You're talking about Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing. Woo! Cam Coleman is going flying, baby.
Okay, but
that's got to get clipped.
Both teams don't have quarterbacks who can throw the ball, and Mark Gronowski's better than Jackson Arnold.
I agree.
So it doesn't matter. I don't know, Blake. The way that I see this is I think that Texas A&M is a great team, and they've, as you've said, they have improved. That's why I'm not taking credit away from them. But I can't look at what Indiana has done this year and overlook it. They're number 2 in game control. Wait, I know you're not. They're number 2 in game control. They're number 2 in strength of record. They're also number 4 in net adjusted EPA. So the consistent dominance that they have had has been noticeable. Texas A&M, number 1 in strength of record. I just have a more identifiable issue with that team that has shown up over the course of multiple games. Indiana does not have an identifiable issue that has hurt them in multiple games.
I haven't played anybody. Give them
okay, man.
Anyway.
Yeah, okay. Can we yell about the other?
All right. What's the other thing that you're mad at me about here?
I think you're too high on Ole Miss. I don't like how high you are on Ole Miss relative to where you have. So it's a constant debate between the Big Ten and the SEC. Yeah, it kind of is.
Okay, so let's get there.
Go. I just yelled for a minute, so I'll let you explain.
I've seen Ole Miss go up against your number 5 team and lose and control that game. And because of lack of depth that they do have, which I agree, they were not able to overcome. Then they go on the road to a top 12 opponent in Oklahoma and dominated them.
Oklahoma a bad team this week.
I did.
Oklahoma. You said they're not a good team.
But here's the thing. You had them in your top 8 last week.
I took them out.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. At the current moment, you had Oklahoma at 8, and they went up there and dominated. I don't care.
We have new information, though.
Name a team that Oregon has dominated in your top 12.
But that's not what I. But I'm.
But they keep going up against teams in your top 12, and they keep winning. And they keep getting claims that are. You said you're going to let me go first. And
Sorry, go ahead.
Good Lord.
No, but you keep misquoting me, so you keep requiring.
I didn't misquote you. I can't misquote you when you literally had them in your top 8. Did you?
I did, but that was last week.
Okay. But again, I look at what Ole Miss has done, and I am going to reward you going toe-to-toe on the road with Georgia in a critical game. If we both had Oklahoma in the top 8 last week, and you go back on the road again and dominate an opponent, I am going to reward you for playing those teams and playing those games and winning. Oregon has shown against quality opponents at this exact moment what?
This is the problem that I have with the whole strength of schedule.
It's not a strength of schedule. What I'm asking you, in their schedule against quality opponents, what have they shown?
They have shown that they have one of the best quarterbacks in the country. They have shown that they have a speedy receiver room. They have shown that they have a solid Yeah, which is an issue, which is why I don't have them in my top 5, or I have them in my top 5.
You do have them in your top
3.
5.
So let me reframe. It's not like I have them top 3. The game that they played against Indiana did expose some of their flaws. They also have a very physical and deep defensive line, and their secondary is solid. They've got issues at linebacker, and they've got a little bit of youth at corner that I think comes into this conversation. But Blake, with Ole Miss, it goes to the same conversation that I talked about with Texas A&M, and their run defense is worse. Their run defense has been consistently much worse. They got gashed by Georgia. They got ran over by Arkansas. They have had a couple of dud performances this year. I'm fine with saying that Ole Miss is a top 12 team and that their schedule will allow for them to get into the playoff and that Trinidad Chambliss elevates that offense 100%. I just have a lot of pause with fully committing to Ole Miss when I feel like they've shown a lot more deficiencies compared to Oregon. Oregon's more balanced.
Are they? Because they can't score against the 2 biggest teams that they've played with the level of talent that they have. If we're gonna call it a spade, they went up against Indiana and barely in moments and times. Dante Moore couldn't get the chains moving. They couldn't get in front of the sticks at home. And when they played Penn State, when in the fourth quarter Penn State started coming back, Joe, they couldn't move the ball when they needed to. And that game with about to be 4-loss Penn State team was really shady. So we keep looking at Ole Miss and saying they have deficiencies. They have deficiencies. They have deficiencies. I think our preseason rankings on Oregon is limiting what their deficiencies are. They are legitimately young at wide receiver, extremely talented, going to be explosive, going to be great. They have some limitations there. Joe, they couldn't run the ball when they needed to against both Penn State or Indiana. When they absolutely needed to line up, they couldn't do it. I see Ole Miss. Do they have deficiencies on defense? Yes, but I also see them keep getting turnovers, and I see their secondary that's played extremely well. I will give you this. Their run defense is completely trash. I'm not defending that, but I got to say this. I have a lot of faith in Trinidad Chambliss right now. Do I think, and I called him Trinidad, yes.
Yeah, it took me a second to register. You do.
Trinidad Chambliss. If you ask me who the better prospect long-term is going to be, it's going to be Dante Moore. But I saw Trinidad Chambliss accomplish something that I didn't know that Ole Miss could do. 5 straight touchdowns versus Georgia. I saw him with a really good, at the time, and I don't think that they're bad, Oklahoma team go in there and do things at will in the rain with a soggy field. And every time that he needed to make a play, the play was made. On the opposite side of that, if you want to talk about this, when Dante Moore, I think he's fantastic. When he needed to make the play versus Indiana, when he had to make the play versus Penn State in moments and times, there were situations when he didn't, and Trinidad did. Do you like the nickname Trinidad? I think
I do. Did you come up with that?
I did not come up with it. Apparently, Lane came up with Trinidad.
Okay.
Trinidad Chambliss.
Okay, here's my
winning.
He does, and I respect Trinidad, and I think that he's a tremendous player.
No. You refer to him as his college football biblical name. You call him Trinidad.
I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
I respect Chambliss. I think that he's a tremendous player. I think he's incredibly unique. I think he should have been starting the season. And I wonder how much better they could even have been right now if he had the chemistry with the starters if he started the year. Here's the thing, though. If we want to really do the comparison of teams that these teams have played, we're drawing from a performance that Oregon had against Indiana, which arguably has the most experienced, talking about most experienced defense in college football. They're one of the most fundamentally sound defenses in college football. They had a tough time going up against one of the best teams in the sport. Ole Miss, their strongest performance, like, what is it? The best team that seriously, if you want to compare the,
I would still say it's Georgia, but I'm not comparing them to Indiana. I'm not comparing Ole Miss to Indiana.
I know that, but that's not what that. No. But you brought up that Oregon was shaky against Indiana, one of the best teams in the sport.
And when Winnidad Chambliss, before the half, had to convert a drive, he did. It's not his fault his defense gave up 43 points. And that is the problem about the team. At the same time, you're going to have to explain Penn State. If you're going to do that, you got to explain Penn State too.
Penn State was one of the most difficult road environments to step into. And as much as Penn State has fallen off,
Georgia isn't.
When you and I could both recognize Penn State's just slightly higher than Georgia, by the way. I think that most people would agree with that. You and I both agreed and can recognize
all my Georgia buddies.
Okay. Can recognize the fact that Penn State's defense, we all knew, was a top 5 group in terms of talent.
Probably still are.
Yeah. And it was still playing at a very high level to that point. That game was close because Drew Aller stunk. And I still watch Dante Moore make a lot of really big plays despite facing a group that's probably going to put five guys into the upcoming draft in the top 100
when they
picks.
Needed to make the plays to win.
Okay.
They had to go to overtime versus Penn State, and they couldn't convert versus Indiana. I literally have Winnidad Chambliss doing that twice, and I got to be real with you. People are going to hate this. When his back was up against the wall and Lane made bad decisions, he was the one that came through for them.
Okay. My problem, Blake, on a separate point. My problem, Blake, that when we do the whole let's look at the resumes bit, the problem with that is that when we bring that up, our perception on how teams are, it is flawed. Because we make a lot of our decisions, and when we talk about having ranked wins, a lot of that is based off of teams that they played that were ranked at the moment that they played them. This is my same problem with Vanderbilt, where Vanderbilt has had a lot of things go their way, and a lot of teams that they played that they beat are probably not going to finish the season ranked. Ole Miss beat LSU, not ranked anymore.
Going to finish ranked.
Okay. But that was the one team that beat them. Let me finish what I'm saying here with Ole Miss. Oklahoma probably doesn't finish the season ranked with the way that they played. I'm trying to get at here is that I think that our ranking and our willingness to pump up Ole Miss and to pump up Vanderbilt is based off the fact that the teams that we're playing weren't as good as we thought that they were.
Okay, what would you do with a one-loss team that lost to your number 5 team?
I'd put them where I put them, where I think I had them at 7. Did I have it 7 or 8?
You had them at 7.
I don't think that's unreasonable. I have to put them behind Georgia because they lost to Georgia. Is 7 like a controversial place to put them?
Sounds good. Sounds good. I understand that. But I also ask, when I look at Oregon, and I think I had Oregon at 7, so this is kind of the flip-flop here. I would take Winnidad. I think they're very inexperienced offensively, is Oregon. And I think it's going to come back to haunt them.
Sorry, I was about to speak, but I forgot I muted myself. My biggest problem
for me. I just need you to say Winnidad.
You get one Winnidad. Before we move on to the preview, I think that the better way of framing this, if there is one team to inexplicably suffer a loss, I think it's a higher chance that it's Ole Miss.
I actually think it's Miami, but that's neither here nor there.
We were